My husband and I decided we were going to try making falafels from scratch. So we bought the dried garbanzo beans, and we also known as chickpeas, and we soaked them in water overnight, and then the next day we stuck them in a Ziploc because we decided that day not to make them, and the next day they had sprouted. I decided that I'm going to actually plant these and see if I can grow some chickpeas. I understand that fresh ones and fresh roasted are absolutely delicious, and it's really hard to find fresh chickpeas. You can find them dried or canned, but it's hard to find them fresh. So this was the first step. Soak overnight, and then let sit on the kitchen counter for a couple days in a Ziploc. Here's my label I'm going to put in. There are two kinds of garbanzo beans, white and black. The black garbanzo tend to germinate quicker than the white garbanzo. However, the black ones have much smaller beans than the white ones. I'm going to use these inexpensive cups as my containers. I drilled a 1/4-inch hole in the bottom for drainage, and I'm putting it in this ridged container so that the holes won't be blocked and the water can actually drain out. It's also really easy to see if the water's draining out because you'll see it collecting in the bottom of the tray. So my plan is here to put some soil, good soil, mixed with some coconut coir as my mix in the cup. And then I'm going to plant 1 garbanzo seed per cup with the root pointing down if at all possible. And we'll see how it goes. First thing I'm going to do is mix up some soil. Starting soil, here's some coconut coir to add extra water retention. Break up any lumps. I'm going to pick out the ones with the best roots to use. So here's the plan. Tamp down gently. Make a hole. Put in my seed. Add a little bit of rabbit manure in there as fertilizer. And repeat. Rabbit manure is great because you can use it right away. You don't have to age it. It doesn't really matter if you plant it with the root going down. It will figure it out. They have this thing called gravitropism, which tells the roots to go toward gravity and the shoots to go away from gravity. So even though they're underground and they can't see light under there, they can still figure out which way to grow, which is pretty cool. I plant them outside. I'm going to put them in a raised bed, and they do better with a little bit of support. They don't grow that high. They're maybe 2-3 feet tall. But with wind and so forth, it's probably better for them to have a little bit of support.
You get 2 harvestings. Oh, and you can eat the leaves too of a garbanzo plant. It's nice, mild, fresh taste. And when you harvest, you just cut off the part of the stem that has the beans on it, and then they'll grow new ones. And they'll populate that again. And then the plant pretty much dies off after you harvest that second batch. So a little bit of rabbit, a little bit of soil, make a hole, bean, cover, tamp. You get new ideas. Whenever you're working on this, you come up with something new to try. I think that's why I like gardening. I'm a science teacher. I like experimenting with stuff, seeing what works. I am zone 7B, and these are generally grown in California, which is a zone 10, Southern California. And they put them out early, like in January or February. That would not work where I live, but I can put them out later. And I think after the 16th or 15th of April is my last frost date here. So I can put them out then. A very general rule of thumb is that the depth of the seed is just a slightly bit more than the diameter of the seed. Something like lettuce and kale that has a very small seed, you only plant about, that was about 1/4 inch deep, very shallow. This, as you can see, has a very large bean, very large seed. I'm not worrying too much if I put soil on top. There's plenty of nutrients in that bean to let these things reach the top of the soil. Have enough energy to do that. Grow some good root systems. This is the first time I've actually had rabbit droppings. A colleague of mine gave me these to put in my compost pile, but you don't really need to compost rabbit droppings because they don't heat up. They're not going to burn the plants the way that some compost will. Like horse and cow manure, you have to compost that for like a year. You can plant them probably 6 inches apart, which is almost what they are now. It's about this cup to this cup, like every other cup. Like that one to that one would be about 8 inches, so maybe just a little bit closer than that. Now the question is what to do with all the rest of these little guys that sprouted. I think I'm gonna roast them. It's hard to find fresh garbanzos, and fresh, they're supposed to be absolutely delicious, and you have to shell them, but if you roast them, you can roast them in the shells. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of water to these and put a marker in there about telling me what they are and when I planted them. It is March 14th. They said 6 to 8 weeks, and it's gonna be about 6 weeks before I plant them outside. So that will be perfect. I gave them a nice little watering, and now I'm going to cover them with plastic wrap to help keep in the moisture. And I'm going to place them here in this window. And when they actually do come up, I'll put them under a grow light. So there they are, all wrapped up. Underneath them, I have a vent that would act like a warming seed starter mat. However, it got hot here for a short time. It's 80 degrees outside, crazy for March, but it's 80 degrees outside, which means my air conditioner's on and it's blowing cold air. But next week it's supposed to get cold again, and that means the heat will come on and it will be blowing warm air, and I will move them down above the vent there. I hope you've enjoyed my experiment and happy gardening. Please like and subscribe.